Good morning. When I first became governor, we put up a bill in the legislature, which is a tiered bill to try to work with what we call the welfare cliff, which is simply what people face in the workplace when they're trying to get out of welfare and out of poverty, And basically, the experience I have had, on many occasions, people will say, I can't take an increase, or could you just give me more time off instead of a raise? It's because I don't want to lose my benefits. And so 4 years ago, we put a bill up, and it just didn't appear the legislature was ready for it, and they just didn't agree, and it died. So we're putting up again, but we're putting it up this time. I think it's a little bit more meaningful, and it goes a little further than we did the first time. We've learned more. I think there's competing bills. And frankly, in my mind, it's not about competing against each other, but it's to have a full debate on the whole process. I really hopefully that this will enlighten them on how far we want to go. I think that over the last few years, implementing the 60-month lifetime limitation, it gives us some savings, one. And those savings are going to be used to work with people to help them get the skill sets and get the self-confidence they need to not only obtain and get a job, but to keep a job and to work their way off welfare. And so, like I said, there are other bills up there, but I hope that we can have a long and fruitful dialogue on what it really truly means to be on welfare and what's it do to the human psyche if they can't get out. So this is really a handout, not a handout, and it's about helping people understand that there's a different path to success. And I say that with all humility because there's no one else in this state that has been as lucky as I have been getting out of poverty. And so I think everybody should have that opportunity. And with that, I'll let the commissioner give you more details about what the bill specifically does. Okay.
Thank you, Governor. We have all heard the anecdotes about people turning down promotions and pay raises for fear of losing their welfare benefits. This welfare cliff keeps Mainers trapped in poverty, stifling their spirit by penalizing them for striving toward self-sufficiency. There is perhaps no more frustrating indictment of our current welfare system. And when everyone has an anecdote, we all have a problem. That's why today we set out to realign our welfare system's incentives with the new goal we have developed for our programs: full employment for every Mainer who is able to work. We must focus our efforts around the potential of people and not their limitations. This legislation supports that mission in 3 ways. First, the current TANF system disregards a certain income level for the purposes of determining eligibility. That income level today is at $108 per month, plus half of all remaining income up to the poverty level. We propose, the governor's proposal, is to tie that income disregard to employment, starting it at a much higher level, but then gradually reducing that benefit over time. The governor has stated repeatedly his fear is that people begin to become employed and their wages increase, that they actually backslide further as they have to take on more and more financial responsibilities. This legislation would expand the income disregard to include 100% of total gross income for the first 2 months of employment, 75% for the following 6 months, and 50% of income thereafter for full-time employees working 40 hours per week or more. For part-time workers, the 100% income disregard lasts for 1 month instead of 2. But importantly, and in contrast to Representative Gattine's proposal, this added benefit requires that recipients meet the federally mandated TANF work participation requirements by working at least 20 hours per week. Furthermore, members may only receive a 100% income disregard once in a 12-month period. These measures ensure that this reform is truly meeting its intended outcome of transitioning Mainers from welfare to work. The second thing that this bill does is increase transportation assistance benefits from 12 to 18 months. We hear repeatedly of the challenges of accessing reliable transportation. Transportation is a prerequisite of employment in most parts of Maine, so it is critical that welfare recipients making the transition to work have plenty of time to secure their own vehicle or other mode of transportation while holding down a job. Finally, the governor's tiered welfare bill allocates $500,000 from Maine's federal TANF block grant to promote financial literacy and good savings habits by providing any family below 200% of the federal poverty level with a small emergency fund in a family development account. These family development accounts exist today, and we are seeking to support and encourage greater use of these accounts. These can be used for down payments, to support education costs, to support healthcare costs, and we will match the savings associated with the recipient with that account. The cost of these proposals is $563,000 for the enhanced income disregard, $776,000 for the extension of the transportation benefit assistance, and $500,000, as I mentioned, for the financial literacy initiative. The costs are paid for completely within existing resources, thanks to the savings that have already been generated by the reforms within the LePage administration, specifically, as the governor outlined, supporting the time limits, identifying pathways that urgently move people onto employment. We can continue to ensure that the resources are repurposed, reprioritized to support this overall structure of helping people out of poverty and onto a pathway of success. With this sensible realignment of incentives in our welfare system, we are continuing the path of transforming our programs into a hand-up as opposed to a hand-out that move Mainers from poverty to prosperity. I appreciate the opportunity to provide these comments. We are extremely excited about what this bill represents in the governor's ongoing efforts to transform the system. And with that, I'm happy to turn this over now to the Senate President, Senator Timothy.
Thank you. First, let me say thank you, Governor and Commissioner Mayhew, for allowing me to be part of this morning's press conference to talk about something that can only be described as a tremendous opportunity. An opportunity to let those who are currently dependent on government work their way into independence. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that folks back home fully recognize that this is something that's long overdue. We have an opportunity to give people an opportunity to improve their own plight and become less dependent on a government handout. We fully recognize that currently people are held back. They're held back in that cycle of dependency because they don't want to give up a benefit, one they can't afford to lose because the job they're taking is an entry-level job. This gives them an opportunity to start at that entry level and actually work and become part of the success that Maine badly needs, become part of that workforce that employers badly need as well. So they have an opportunity to work, prove their worth to the company, hopefully during that period of time, become important to the company, get raises, and indeed work their way off from a government dependency onto a system of being independent, where they can pay their own way and really reach their maximum potential. So I'm excited about the opportunity to be the lead co-sponsor on this bill. I'm anxious for the debate because I think that every one of us in this room, and indeed everybody in this state, knows that it's long overdue. With that, I think it's Senator Brady who's going to address.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Senator Eric Brakey. I'm the Senate Chairman for the Health and Human Services Committee. I'm going to keep my comments very brief. Brevity is the soul of wit. But I just wanted to speak very briefly about the historic nature of this legislation and bring it back home to some of the personal stories that how these problems have affected my family and how they've affected so many Maine families. I know when my grandmother was raising 7 kids by herself in New Gloucester over 50 years ago, she ran into this problem. Trying to make a little bit of extra money to put food on the table by cleaning other people's houses. And she found that for every dollar she made, she lost more in the assistance that her family so very much needed in order to get by. 50 years later, as many of us, including myself, went door to door in our communities talking to people and the very real problems that they face, the same problem exists. The same problem, people trying to move from welfare to work, trying to move from a place of dependence on government to a place of self-reliance and independence, and yet the programs themselves are getting in the way. The programs themselves are, in certain places, structured in such a way that it makes making that leap from dependence to independence very difficult to overcome for some people. That's why I'm very happy to see that the governor is putting forward this historic legislation in the Health and Human Services Committee. I know we're looking forward to a very rigorous debate on the best ways to wherever we can, whenever possible, whenever we find these welfare cliffs, to eliminate them and create bridges of independence. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jean Paquette. I'm Commissioner of the Department of Labor. And I, too, support this effort that Commissioner Mayhew, the governor, all of the legislators that are involved are backing. I have to say that I'm going to give you an example that I heard about just the other day. We look at the individual and we say, wouldn't it be great if we could get them off of assistance? But it also affects the team where they work. I have an example of a manufacturer that has a very competent woman who is on TANF. She has to stop her job. She has to stop working if she has too many hours during the week. So it not only hurts her, it hurts her team within the organization that she's working in. And it's really too bad because we don't think about it, how it affects her coworkers, to see that she's not able to fulfill her duties because she will lose her benefit. So I'm really supportive of moving forward this initiative forward. And we also will be looking at the unemployment system and how we can look at that system to also figure out partial employment. We're actively looking at regulations, we're actively looking at the rules, the statutes, and we're working with our federal partners to figure out how we can be more flexible in the unemployment arena as well. So I want to thank you all today. I want to thank the governor, Commissioner Mayhew, Senator Thibodeau, and Representative Brakey for all this hard work. Thank you.
Any questions?
Governor, do you have any idea how many there's roughly 7,000 households, I believe, on TANF. Do you have any idea how many of those folks are affected by this?
I would say every one that's able to work, because not everybody on TANF are able to work. Basically, anyone that's 19 to 49 that wants to work, that have entry-level skills or low pays qualify. And we urge them to apply, and everybody to come in, because this is really a way to, sure, it's going to be, it's going to cost money in the short term, but believe me, one thing we're finding out, and Commissioner Mayer can tell you this, is this whole thing about if you're able to work, you either volunteer, you go to school, you go to work. We have more volunteers than we have places to put them right now. So it's not a matter of not wanting to be able to be self-sufficient. It's a matter of knowing, being taught how to do it, and how to maintain jobs, how to get jobs, how to interview for jobs. And those are all skills that we need to be working with. So I think this is an opportunity where we can work with more folks and give more folks a hand up so they can get through the system.
As you said, Representative Bettine has a similar bill. It seems like Democrats are open to this idea. How confident are you that this could get passed this year?
I'm very confident that usually it's unusual when you have both parties looking at the same idea, same concept. So hopefully this can get through in some fashion.
What do you see as the biggest differences between your proposals and the Democratic proposals?
I'd say just simply, I think we go further. We go further in skills development, more in helping the people stay on the system a little bit longer to make sure they can be self-sufficient. I think we deal more with, as you heard from Commissioner Parquet, we're dealing more with the long term rather than just immediate crisis.
I might just add, Joe, that Representative Bettine would allow for an income disregard regardless of whether or not they're meeting the minimum work participation rates. And again, as a reminder, the state faces over $20 million in federal penalties dating back many, many years because the state has failed to achieve those federal requirements of work participation requirements. And we've got to create a sense of urgency and an understanding that TANF is about employment. That is fundamentally at its core what the expectation is. So that is a significant difference between Representative Bettine's bill and what is being put forward here today.
Commissioner, you said that, I believe you said Representative Bettine's bill would also add people to the TANF program. Is that?
That there are a number of different bills out there today. Certainly the distinction on the tiered benefit is that it doesn't truly incentivize work participation and reward those that are working a minimum of 20 and then really incentivize those that are working 40 hours. We have other concerns with other bills, I can't recall it specifically in this one, that would continue to carve exceptions and add more individuals, would eliminate some of the current parameters around eligibility to the TANF program that just take us back years to defining success by the number of people enrolling on the program as opposed to the number of people who are successfully transitioning off.
Governor or Commissioner, how does this address the other cliff that a lot of these families are concerned about, and that's childcare? Because if they go to work, they then have a childcare cost that's very difficult sometimes to meet.
Well, we have this we have childcare benefits in the Aspire program. So if they're working, they qualify for childcare.
And then once they leave the program, they get transitional
Right.
child care assistance. And then beyond that, Maine, the Child Care Development Fund, actually has one of the most generous eligibility programs for child care assistance. It's up to 250% of the federal poverty level. So accessing support, financial support for child care should not be a barrier for someone increasing their income.
I understand that this new program begins with people who are employed at least 20 hours per week. Is there any chance people who are employed less than that? Or the flip side of that is it possible if you're working fewer than 20 hours a week that you could still go over the cliff, or just that's not?
Going over the cliff at less than 20 hours, I think it's going to be very difficult. Having worked with the clubhouse model for years, usually 20 hours is the beginning point that we used to use. And we go from 20 hours on up, and that you start getting into problems that beyond 32, 33 hours a week, then you may, depending on the hourly rate, you could get into problems. But usually at 20 or less than 20, I'm not, unless it's a psychiatrist maybe.
And I want to just emphasize what the governor said earlier about the importance first of establishing the time limits to this program, again dating back to a 1996 reform that Maine had not implemented. If the governor has been passionate about making sure that the moment they walk through our door, that there are resources being provided to urgently move them on this pathway to getting the education they need, the training that they need, the supports around interviewing. And that's what this bill is just continuing to support, is that incentivizing of employment. That at the end of the day, the answer to helping people out of poverty and off of welfare dependency is a job. It's not complicated, and we've got to make sure that all of our policies are geared toward incentivizing work.
This policy right here, that, you know, a good job and the right attitude to work is critical. And then you got to have stable housing. We are working with this program, deals with the work side. Yesterday we were meeting with Mary's people and Maine State Housing. We're looking at a way to stabilize the chronic unemployment, the chronic homelessness that causes unemployment. And that's a whole new area. We're looking at different models. We're going to be doing an awful lot of work in that area. In fact, we're talking about getting a commission together to identify different areas of society, to identify some of the causes and effects of this issue. So, you know, frankly, getting off welfare, it's about having some confidence, having food in your belly, and a roof over your head. And then the harder you work, the luckier you'll get. You know, it's really not new technology. It's just the old-fashioned way. Nothing's free in life. And so, yes, we are concerned about people having good jobs, and we are concerned about people having adequate housing. And it all works together, and it takes time to develop the right programs.
Governor,
Yes.
a different question. Have you agreed to meet with the gentleman making the sexual abuse allegations in Biddeford, and how concerned are you about them?
Sexual, I don't know. About me?
Yeah, no, not about you. Not yet. We received an email this morning saying that you have agreed to meet with the man making the allegations about Biddeford police.
First I hear. Sorry.
Governor, you brought up homelessness. I know that there's some sort of protest in Portland tonight, homeless advocates, because they say the city is cutting back. It's going to put people out on the street. I mean, I'm sure the city is going to say that they're cutting back because of the fight they're in.
Well, when they say that, tell me Brendan to come out and we'll talk about it. If he follows the rules, there's no reason to cut back.
Governor, going back to the welfare reform stuff for a minute, I was speaking with Congressman Paulton a few days ago, and he mentioned some federal reforms that may be coming. I don't know if either you or the commissioner can speak to how important is it for this, either this legislation or other initiatives that you might like to do for those reforms to go forward.
I can't speak for the commission, but I will tell you, I am the governor of the state of Maine. I will be flying down to Washington today to testify on programs that I think that would be helpful to the state of Maine. One of my comments to the Congress is going to be that bureaucracy in America has stolen democracy, and so they need to do their jobs before we can contribute, because until we see that there's a backbone in Congress, the bureaucracy in Congress runs the country. And so until they're willing to sit down and talk about flexibility to the states, allowing us in and giving us a word, talk is cheap. So I haven't seen that yet. Now, this is an effort to go down and to tell them what our dilemma is with FERC and with EPA and see if they can make a difference. So we're always willing to talk, but actions speak louder than words.
So I can just add that what the governor said about flexibility really is the crux of the challenge. We've got these federal programs that attempt to have a one-size-fits-all across the country. The governor has been aggressive in reforming our system. We need to be able to have the flexibility to tailor these programs to be in alignment and not in conflict. I'll give you an example. We can't get the permission without a waiver from the federal government to restrict what food stamps can be used for, soda, candy, and yet we've got an obesity challenge in the costs associated with Medicaid programs. So we've got to seek greater opportunity and flexibility to align these programs to work in the best interest of the people of this state, and that's what the governor's been committed to certainly over the last 4 years, and is endeavoring to
I'll give you one even more basic than that. You take a look at Riverview Hospital. The reason we get decertified is because a psychiatrist that works at a hospital cannot be treating a forensic patient and a civil patient. They want different doctors dealing with it. Come on. We have a shortage of doctors in the first place. So it's just these ridiculous rules that make no sense whatsoever. And sometimes it's better to say, keep your money, we'll go do the right thing for the right people. It's okay to do things right by the book, but doing the right thing sometimes is not one size fits all.
Does this new tiered approach to the TANF program require any federal participation or waiver?
Frankly, I don't care.
And then they,
Oh, the answer is no.
yeah.
Do you think there's a large group of people who maybe don't want to work and are happy to be just on welfare? This is kind of a way to weed some of those people.
I don't think it's large. I think there are some, yeah, but no, I do not think it's large. As a matter of fact, sometimes that's more anecdotal than not, that people don't want to work. I think what I'm finding out, and I'm encouraged, that people really want to get out there and do something. The problem is having the skill sets and knowing how to do it. For instance, a very simple thing, very, very simple thing, is when you're interviewing, don't chew bubble gum. And you know something? How many of you gone to a restaurant and they're waiting on you and they're chewing bubble gum? Not a good way to get a job. Very simple. But some people have never been told that.
Governor, there's a lot of welfare reform proposals out there right now, and not all of them have done well in committee. Kind of in the grand scheme of things, how important is this to your overall welfare agenda, and would you be satisfied if this is the only one that made it through?
I'm never satisfied. I'm sorry, it's not meant to be funny or anything. I think we have so much to do. I would say this is a start. I think there's so much more to be done so that everybody can benefit. And no, I'm not totally satisfied with anything. I think in all kinds of areas. I mean, one of the biggest dilemmas I'm dealing with right now is how do you properly fund roads with efficiency of cars? Get more efficient, and going further, you have electric cars, you have hybrids, you have gas, natural gas, compressed natural gas cars. How do you get it all in so that you can still maintain your roads? Because a lot of people are getting freebies now. And cars travel much further. So do you go by a gas tax, or do you go by a road tax? I mean, I don't know. These are all debates we're having. So there's all kinds of issues. Believe me, I don't lack in issues. I lack in meaningful, substantive programs to replace the things that are not working.
And Governor, you said a few minutes ago, I think that you're very confident that something will pass on the tiered system.
I am because, believe me, in a session, there's very few items that come up that both parties will be talking about in a positive manner. And this year, both the Democrats and Republicans agree and see opportunities to improve the system. So it's just a matter, I know we want to get there differently. I mean, I sat with a Democrat representative yesterday. I know what he's trying to do, and I understand what he's trying to do, and I agree with the end result of what he wants, but the program he wants to do isn't going to work, isn't going to do it. Because I've been there and I've done that, and the last thing you want to do is take children, for instance, and make them feel like they're crooks or bad people or criminals. And that's not the way you start to fix a program. And so this is another issue, but this one here seems to be something that we both agree, we both understand is a problem. And so we're going to debate it, and as you heard Senator Brakey, he wants to give it a real strong debate, and so the more ideas, the better off we are.
one question about the specifics of the disregard under the new system. Can you talk a little bit about the logic of having the longer 100% for people who work 40 hours? I know that oftentimes people who want to find full-time work can't get that many hours, so why extend it more for them and for the part-timers?
Yeah.
Again, at the end of the day, TANF is an employment-focused program. And to get people off of these, to eliminate the dependency, we've got to incentivize 40 hours of work a week. And what we're trying to do, what the governor was very focused on, is that as someone's income increases to that extent, what they then begin to take on for other costs associated with housing, with food, with transportation, that they can actually slide farther backwards as their benefit is eliminated. And so we're trying to create stability over a longer period of time for those working at 40 hours or more a week to help support them, because that's the direction we want people to go, and to really address what some may see as punitive as they work more hours.
But it's not always up to the worker whether they get 40 hours. You know, the employer has a role to play in ensuring that as well. So the thing I'm confused about is why it's twice as long.
Two
for 40
things.
hours.
There's a psyche. There's a psyche. One is, if you're working 20 hours, I don't want you to be comfortable with 20 hours. Because 20 hours isn't gonna make it unless you're getting paid an unusually high and you're talented in one certain field. I think that the whole idea here is you start at 20 hours, and maybe this particular job can't provide you 40, but hey, I worked 3 jobs at one time. I worked 2 jobs. The whole idea is to look at the bigger picture long term, and not get trapped into just today.
So that would work for people who work 40 hours at 2 different jobs as well. As long as
That's
it's
correct,
like-
absolutely, yes, yes, yes.
You all finished, Mario?
Yes.
I think we gotta move along here, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.